All right, a 1v1 kicking off here. High Elves versus the Dwarfs. The War of Vengeance is in full act here. Let's take a look at our army. So I am, of course, playing the High Elves today. We have a nice front line of Swordmasters intermixed in with some White Lions of Trace. Now, White Lions have had a pretty tumultuous past here, from being pretty shit units now being pretty great units. And they have a lot of really great matchups. Tomb Kings, Warriors of Chaos, in addition, Dwarfs. They make great dwarf crackers here with that nice high armor, that good AP. These guys are the ways to go. In addition to that, we do have the Swordmasters of Hoeth here, creating that great anti-infantry mechanic as well as the AP here. Now, if we take a look at their actual stats themselves, they dropped a whopping 14 damage into anti-infantry. So 14 of that weapon strength goes directly to the face. And you can see our opponent's already using a Goblobber to start picking off our Swordmasters of Hoeth. In the backline, though, we have 3 units of archers. We have a L'Ariel here, not on her Doom Pigeon, just simply on on horseback. And for her spells, we went with Faw's Protection, Earth Blood, and Shield of Thorns. Shield of Thorns is a really great way to do a lot more additional damage, especially casted on top of a Swordmaster of Hoeth or a White Lion, and get a lot of really good physical resist from the buff itself. Also, we have the Star of Aberlorn, which does a lot of really great healing. I'll say this till I'm blue in the face. L'Ariel is a great lord here, or I guess lady, because she allows you to have a lot of issues, or I'm sorry, a lot of ways to correct minor mistakes in your build. Now, 2 things that are very uncharacteristic of me. I went with the Double Noble, but on a chariot. And you'll see how I get to use chariots in this build today. You know, it's very uncharacteristic of me. I typically never, ever touch chariots. But the only way to get better at things that you suck at is to use them. Now, moving across the battlefield here, we have 1 unit of miners kind of getting caught out. That's going to be our initial focus here. And you can see a Goblobber is launching downfield. Now, their lord, the Dwarf Lord, is a Rune Lord here. Real great option. It's a cheap way to get a lot of really great casting, quote-unquote, for the Dwarfs. So we'll see that guy kind of go into full effect throughout the rest of the fight. Another just normal Runesmith here. Then another one way in the back over there. So 3 total rune casters of some variation. Now, the front line here is comprised mainly of Longbeards and Warriors. So we have Longbeards with great weapons, Dwarf Warriors, Dwarf Warriors, Dwarf Warriors, and then Longbeards with great weapons. Those great weapons are really good against a lot of the High Elf infantry line. The White Lions, I think, have 80 armor to begin with, so these guys are a really great way to crack open a lot of the heavily armored units. Now, the real meat and potatoes of this army are the 5 total units of Thunderers. Now, really the biggest challenge for me is going to be shutting these things down as fast as possible. They do have defense against any kind of missile play, so getting in range of them with my archers and shooting them isn't necessarily going to guarantee a win for me. So let's go ahead and speed this up to normal speed and let everything march on downfield. Now, they do have a lot of miners in there as well, so we'll see how this all kind of plays out. And I went with a higher game volume here today, so let me know how that plays out, if it drowns out my voice or if it's pretty much in line. I want to know. I want to make sure you guys can really get the good cinematic experience here. Now, our first initial play is to target those miners. Now, here's a real quick kind of tutorial on how to use chariots. Make contact, fight for half a second, maybe a beat or 2, then push through to the next creature. In this case, we didn't want to continue on. We just want to get some first initial play action, get some free picks. We got to watch out for those thunders, because they will tear up those nobles pretty quickly. Chargers coming in, taking some initial fire here. All right, kind of move down the line. This thing's unfortunately kind of blocking our charge, so we kind of have to wrap around, which is unfortunate. We're going to take some additional fire from that. But the nice thing is that the Swordmasters of Hoeth do have a minor defense against some of this stuff, so this will help them out here. Getting our White Lions up close and personal, ripping through some of these miners here. You can see they're already running pretty handedly. This is the unit that we kind of caught out, so it's a pretty huge advantage. Now, the Runesmith and Rune Lord is in a big engagement here, trying to get some additional fire onto those miners as well. We're getting to that back line, to that juicy back line there, right with those White Lions into those Dwarf Warriors. Now, the big thing here is getting these chariots into these Thunderers as fast as possible. We've popped a Faw's Protection to help give a little bit more armor when dealing with some of those Thunderers. He is a little bit weakened, so we have to try and absorb some of those shots as much as possible. And again, just moving through, down the line, down the line, down the line. What I wish I had done here is actually broken these nobles off and gone into different units. Just again, you do want to be mindful of Thunderers, just like the Quarrelers, are actually Dwarf Warriors with the range variant, with ranged weapons. So they are still pretty strong in combat. You have to keep moving them, gotta keep moving them. One of these nobles is in pretty bad danger here, already casting an Earthblood on them to try and keep them up. We have Star of Avalorn ripping off, trying to keep these White Lions in the fight. They are a little sandwiched, but they do have their Swordmasters as their support. They have quite a big Doom stack here. L'Ariel's in a bad compromising situation, but that is a little bit more intended. I want to bring this army in closer to me so I can have my Swordmasters jump into them. Those Swordmasters and these Longbeards are going to be a great opposition to one another. In the back line, though, we can see we have our archers just kind of firing off. We do want to try and keep them in range of Thunderers as best we can, getting some additional damage into them. We have one of our nobles has fled, unfortunately. But now we have enough units in the back line to try and get into these Thunderers, while we maintain our frontline combat as best as possible. Really, the big thing here is trying to get as much pressure into that back line as fast as possible. Earthblood kicking off, keeping this army up and running. They're positioned between a lot of big, heavy things. We have our noble here with a Shield of Thorns and an Earthblood, trying to get some initial damage onto this Runesmith, if not the Rune Lord. He will do some good damage, but he shouldn't be staying in this prolonged combat. That's a bit of a mistake on my part. But we have a unit of Swordmaster of Hoeth coming back from fleeing away and being able to chop up some miners. Now, getting deep into this back line, we have a unit of Swordmasters and a unit of White Lions going right in on these Thunderers. Look at this. The War of Vengeance! Now, the main thing here is just keeping them moving. We want to make sure that we keep those Thunderers from not firing as much as possible. And kudos to my opponent here. He really did a good job of keeping his Thunderers overlapping each other, right? So these Thunderers are moving while these ones are running away. These Thunderers are moving in better position to do more damage. But we do have a noble crushing in here right to the flank of some of these Thunderers, just sending these little meatballs flying. Archers the entire game, though, have pretty much been uncontested. We do have a little opposition in the back end with some Longbeards there. But for the most part, we're doing a really great job in this main pocket of combat here. We've brought Alariel into the fight, trying to do some damage onto the Rune Lord, just going to blind him there. And you can see Thunderers, like I said, overlapping fire onto one another. So Masters of Hoeth getting pulled this direction. Nobles riding through these Thunderers on the side here. But two Thunderers are pretty much uncontested, firing at will. And this Goblobber the entire time has been firing without any contesting. We have some units kind of coming back here. We have that White Lions of Trace chasing off that Runesmith. We don't want that back in here. Star of Avalorn kicking off, trying to get some really good critical heals here to help win this fight and crush that Rune Lord. If we can get rid of their leadership and their ability to cast those runes, it's going to at least help sway the balance in our favor a little bit more. You can see that balance of power is a little bit more in my favor than it is the Dwarfs, but they're still not set and done here. There's quite a bit of opposition my way, especially in the way of those Thunderers. There are so many Thunderers to deal with. I'm getting sweating. I'm sweating just thinking about how I felt during this fight. We can see just kind of a nice overview of the battle map here. We've done a lot in this early engagement, and we've won. And we have almost an entire full unit of White Lions of Trace and a nice, good strength unit of Swordmasters of Hoeth. But that Rune Lord still hasn't cracked, and he is doing quite a bit of damage to both these units. So we got to make sure we get rid of that engagement as fast as possible. Some of the frontline elements of the Dwarfs have now pushed back in to defend their backline, with my noble doing whatever he can with whatever health he's got. At one point, our other noble came back, but was unfortunately destroyed. One last charge of the noble. Can I say that? Can you say no? Is that like a double positive? And he's going to flee off the board, unfortunately, now. But again, getting these archers into range onto the Thunderers has kind of been the biggest tug of war of this match. Screening out this charge with these White Lions into these Dwarf Warriors, pushing these archers into a better, more advantageous position, although they do have miners coming in on them. Things are still kind of going hot and wild over here. I mean, we have 3 total units dedicated to this fight, and the Rune Lord is just taking forever to crack. Had I actually done a better job of managing the amount of time that was spent on the Rune Lord, the Rune Lord doesn't do a ton of damage on his own. The big thing are his runes, and he's used so many dedicated to this fight that, see, at this point I kind of realize, okay, why am I spending so many resources here? I pull the Swordmasters off and start to send them down to the back end for those Thunderers. Those Thunderers are going to be the thing that is going to mince my army up the most right now. Our balance power is really pushing into our favor here as we continue to deal with the kind of straggling remnants of the dwarfs, and we pull out a Pyrrhic victory at the very end. So let's take a look at that post-battle report. So you can see, really, those Swordmasters, 126, 139, they pulled their weight. I mean, these guys got focused down pretty hard, but they still were able to do quite a bit of damage. These guys were focused mainly on the Rune Lord. Now, taking a look at the White Lions, though, 96, 97, 77. I don't know what you were doing. I think this was the one that was focused on that Rune Lord as well. They really did a lot of damage. For 800 points, they really returned their cost. I mean, if you take a look at the Dwarf Army by comparison, they weren't able to dish out a lot of damage to my infantry when you look at their infantry. But really what the big like bastions of damage here were the Thunderers and that Goblobber. I should have probably put a dwarf, or not a dwarf noble, good God, a high elf noble on that Goblobber to just do some persistent damage to it and help shut it down. One of the big things I'm trying to do here is get better at quick battles again. I used to do quick battles a lot, and I haven't in the past couple months, so you can look forward to seeing a lot more of these on the channel here. Look at this noble. He has earned his noble title by being noble at 122 whopping kills. Now, the archers didn't have the best targets. I will say my archers weren't shooting at the Thunderers the majority of the game like they should have been. In fact, I would even argue that taking no archers and taking one Sister of Averlorn, which would have been about the same amount of points, would have been more value added because my backline wasn't contested the entire time. It's very hard for the dwarfs to contest a backline short of actual artillery, and their artillery is better used on some of the harder targets in the front row that might be a little bit easier to crack with a couple artillery salvos. Now, a Sister of Averlorn would have been able to dish out far more damage to almost his entire front line while maintaining distance from the Thunderers. So maybe that would have been a better approach with this build. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video here today. We have quite a few quick battles to share with you, so stay tuned. We'll have a couple more coming out throughout the next couple days. But as always, guys, thanks so much for watching here today. Don't forget to check out my Patreon, comment below, all that kind of jazz. But have a good one and take care.